In this video, I'm going to help you negotiate a high-paying six-figure salary with secrets that work for myself. If you're brand new to the channel, I have worked at top investment banks for over a decade, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and successfully negotiated high-paying salaries at other investment banks like JP many hedge funds like Arrowgrass, private equity firms like CISI, and big four accountancy firms like KPMG, PwC, and Deloitte, right? And I've used some of these techniques I'm going to share with you here. So let's start with this clip from Joshua Fluke, which is quite a funny negotiating tactic that some companies use.
Always said this, you got to recruit the spouse. The spouse locks them in. So when you're interviewing and you're working with someone, you need to find a way to connect with the spouse.
People forget about
Whether
that.
it's a phone call. I used to just say this, hey, I just want to talk to your wife, or you talk to your husband. Why? It's just because we're a family company. I want to make sure I answer his or her questions so they have an understanding what we're going to be doing together.
Now, I'd like to introduce you to Cody Askins about your spouse, wife, kids, the whole fam. He says when you're recruiting... I'm sorry, I had to do it. It was too easy. When you're recruiting, don't forget the spouse. 100, connect with them because they help lock in the dream. Whose dream? Exactly, Cody. And I'm not the only one confused. This person says, how can involving spouses in the recruitment process contribute to building a stronger and more successful team? First off, why do you need to connect with the spouse? Second, what if they don't have a spouse?
Is, hey, I just want to talk to your wife, or you talk to your husband. Why? It's just because we're a family company.
This book is called The Coach Approach, implying they're talking about sports teams. But in this example, he says, well, I want to talk to your husband or wife because we're a family company. So which is it? Are you a sports team or are you a family? Because one of those is a giant red flag, and it's not the sports team. Can you imagine just trying to get a job and the recruiter's asking to talk to your wife or husband because they want them to help you lock in this guy's dream? All of this is just pressure tactics, and it gets everyone involved, and it makes it really difficult to back out of the job.
I want to make sure I answer his or her questions so they have an understanding what we're going to be doing together. Because
all this really does is just give a whole bunch of information about you that the company doesn't need to have. Can you do the job or not? Are you qualified? Do you have the skills? Why do you need to involve my family in it? This gives you just so much power. Let me just give you a quick example of why you shouldn't let them talk to your spouse. They'll ask all sorts of seemingly friendly questions to you. You might have no idea. Are you guys busy on the weekends? Yeah, do anything on Sundays? It's very easy to gauge if someone's religious or if they'll be busy, and then you can discriminate and you can be biased. Now, if you thought...
So this is quite funny, right? In terms of the manager ganging up on you with your spouse, saying, oh, we need to speak with your wife. Now, I understand these things are quite rare, but I thought it was a funny example of how, particularly if you're a man, but if you're an employee in general or you're looking for your next job, you have to deal with all these external pressures telling you what you should want, when really what you should want is to maximize your money and your freedom in any job, right? And freedom, that would be work flexibility to work from home, or maybe study professional qualifications by finishing work early, maybe 2 days a week, things like that. So this is the thing with this simp culture that we live in, right? The simp strike again, right? Like a manager saying, oh, you need to ask your wife's permission whether you can get this job. Or some men deciding whether to get a job based on their wife's input. Now, nothing wrong with having some input, but you see this all the time, the happy wife, happy life bros, right? They can't think for themselves. Their decisions in their life are made for them by their boss at work or by their wife. They have like two managers, their work boss and their wife boss, right? So it's kind of funny. And now a lot of this thing is really a deeper point I'm trying to make around emotional manipulation that managers might use to get you to agree to job offers or salary negotiations you don't agree with. But also even in your personal life decisions, how you spend your money, where you go on holiday, what opinions you're allowed to have. So many times when you're a man in the work environment, this is meant to be dictated to you by your manager, by your boss, your company, your co-workers, your wife at home, things like that. You have to really think for yourself. Another thing that came up here, the red flag of saying, oh, we are a family company. Again, it's a company, it's not your family. You can't really buy any of the family lingo that they have at workplace. They're not even your friends, so they're not family or friends, right? Now, the one thing I would want to say is when it comes to modern recruitment these days, it's not so much about the job and the skills you have. It's all about the superficial elements, the way you dress. Do you fit in socially with other co-workers? Do you have similar hobbies as your co-workers? In the finance industry, for example, going on skiing trips is quite common. Expressing liberal, left-wing leaning opinions, going to art galleries, having similar kind of beliefs on philosophy, things like that are kind of cringe, but it's just the way that culture typically works. So you should always think about those things when you are in interview phases, when you are building that work relationship with your co-workers. Try to gauge what the culture is, and without compromising yourself too much, you could be fitting in with some of that, right? Maybe they're talking a lot about sports, you can fit in with that. Also thinking about when it comes to negotiations, what are your key deciding factors? Like money and time are big things, for example, and you have to have some family considerations. If you do have a wife and kids, what works for them too, right? But you shouldn't let them kind of gang up on you and being like, oh, you have to accept a job you're going to hate just because it's higher pay to give your wife a more lavish lifestyle, for example, right? And the type of tactics that do occur. And I've seen people who are earning high salaries, who have 7 figures net worth, multimillionaires, low multimillionaires, I would say in the $2 to $5 million range, working as traders or salespeople within the trading floor, and they don't like their job. They've got enough money in a sense to retire if they were frugal to a certain extent over the long term of their life, but they're buying their wife expensive things, expensive handbags. You've got a model wife who they're spending a lot of money on, or they've got instances where their wife is super clean on interior decor and he's paying for all these home renovations. I've seen all these type of different examples, and it ends up putting you in a position as a man where you're constantly compromising yourself to fit in, to keep your wife happy, keep your boss happy, and you're never figuring out what you want. That's why before you go into negotiations in terms of salary or any type of change in your job situation, you have to know what you want and really think that through. And sometimes it's not always money. It could be career growth. It could be new opportunities where you sidestep in your career for the same salary or for slightly less money, depending on your specific scenario. And then what you end up having to do is just taking that sidestep to taking a step up later. So it's kind of nuanced. It's not just about the money or what would keep your wife happy.
I want to make sure I answer his or her questions so they have an understanding what we're going to be doing together, because this dream is not just about you, it's about her as well.
That just feels so manipulative. It's not just about your dream. It's her dream too. Let's bring them all in. Get everyone involved. Let's really sell these people and lock them in.
Sales press a tough day. He's going to go home to the right kind of person that's going to lift him up, saying, honey, remember what Mr. Holland said? We got a price to pay. I want to let her know her
price to pay? What price? Mr. Holland said, remember, honey, he talked to both of us on the phone. We have a price to... This is so strange.
Honey, remember what Mr. Holland said? We got a price to pay. I want to let her know her dream board's now my dream board. She's going to be my assistant coach to make sure he has a good attitude before he goes to sleep, gets a good meal in him, and gets back up the next day ready to go take on the world.
So you got to make sure that your spouse has a good attitude before he goes to sleep. That's your job as the spouse, because you're now this guy's assistant coach. Are you getting paid for this? Are you also employed there, or are you just a family company and that's how families work? You just help each other out, or is it the coach approach? I'm still confused.
Good meal in him and gets back up the next day ready to go take on.
And you have to make sure that he gets back up ready to take on the world. You're basically just his parent, but you're the spouse. Thought this was about...
So these are the type of phrases you might hear, and this is how managers typically talk about their employees. Even if they're being fake nice in front of you, behind your back, they just see you as a corporate slave for them to use, right? Mentioning, oh, we've got a price to pay if things don't work out. Threat, the whole concept of a dream board, which is a vision board, where if you're not familiar with the term dream board or vision board, it's where you might have a board at home and every goal you're aiming for, you put on that board, right? I have something similar actually, but it could be buying a car, buying a house, living abroad, going on certain trips, maybe holidays, vacations, things like that. And you put images of this on a board. And the whole concept is like, well, he has to work hard because he has to keep his wife's dream board, her vision board and all her goals happy, right? Or keep the company happy too. So he can be a good corporate slave, and the wife is training her husband in this context to be a good corporate slave, right? See, this is what I mean in some of my videos about how, unfortunately, in the corporate environment, because a lot of men don't have their own dignity and self-respect, this culture becomes normalized and gets pushed on you even if you don't agree with it. And that's why when I say most men are kind of neutered, castrated, censored, controlled, they're like domesticated house pets, right, with their wife boss and their work boss. And that's when they lead to making poor job negotiation strategies, right? They end up going, oh, what's gonna keep my wife happy? What's gonna give us the ability to buy that bigger house that we don't need with a higher mortgage, right? Which is gonna not create more stability in your life because it's overextending yourself. It's lifestyle inflation. It's spending more money than you have to when you could be investing that to have more long-term financial stability and freedom to live life on your own terms. So this is the thing. When you're dealing with negotiations, you should think about the framing and the presence and being confident and assertive in that and showing up to the table in that way. Don't underestimate things, for example, the importance of being likable. That's the first thing I'd start with, right? If you're somewhat friendly with a degree of self-respect and dignity, not letting them walk all over you, being assertive and not abrasive, right? People only go the extra mile when it comes to giving you a bit of leeway when it comes to negotiations if they like you, right? And being likable isn't just being polite, it's about managing difficult situations with grace and negotiations with grace, requesting more, justifying it on the basis of your skills without sounding greedy, pointing out problems without seeming like you're being quite petty, right? And practicing with friends to see how you come across in negotiations. So you can always think about how do you negotiate situations outside of work before you go into that maybe tense job offer salary negotiation. Another thing is helping them understand why you deserve what you're requesting. Say, pairing your skills that you have to offer with the salary that you're requesting. And the thing is, being liked isn't enough. And you should be careful what you're saying, right? You can be kind of blunt. Sometimes I think, particularly as men, we can be a bit more blunt than maybe other demographics. A woman might be a bit more polite when it comes to some of the negotiations. So just be careful of how you're discussing things, right? You want to be being able to be diplomatic but still push for what you want, right? And think about your unique experience that you have to offer, things like that. The other thing is being careful about explaining your value in the wrong way, right? You don't want to say, well, I deserve this because I have this level of skill. You should say, well, I can offer these skills. I can really benefit the team. I can benefit the company by doing this. And I have this skill level of experience, or maybe something unique, maybe speaking a foreign language that will help a sales team that is dealing with clients in another country, for example. Other thing is thinking about being available, making it clear that you're available in the negotiations. You're not making it so tough for them in the sense that, oh, it's do or die. Either they pay you a particular salary or you're not going to accept the job. Either they give you 2 days work from home or you're not going to accept it. Making it clear you're open to negotiating things, right? You're someone that they can fight for, in the sense that someone that they can win over in negotiation. You're not just someone who's rigid and is not flexible in that negotiation. The other thing is understanding their perspective too, because sometimes I know the companies tend to exaggerate that they have a tight budget when they really could pay you more. You should just think about, you're dealing with very different dynamics. Sometimes you could be dealing with HR and they have a specific budget amount to pay you and they might not be able to be flexible in that. But overall, of course, the company has a bigger budget. You might need to leverage or discuss your skill level in more detail with the hiring manager so they can go and bat for you to negotiate a higher salary to hire you, maybe an extra 5 to 10 grand, whatever that would be. So you should know these different situations. Dealing with the HR versus the hiring manager could have different goals and limits. Obviously, HR have less flexibility. They're not going to be able to negotiate as much for a higher budget for you for your salary, but the hiring manager will if they really want to hire you. So you should think about that type of dynamic there, who you're dealing with, and adjusting your approach with that particular personal dynamic in mind. And remember, they're not necessarily out to get you. They might try to lowball you with a low-paying salary, but just keep that in perspective and bear in mind they might have internal processes or limits in place, or it might take a bit of time for them to approve a higher salary. There's all sorts of discussions going on behind the scenes that you typically never see, but you can imply, oh, well, maybe if I requested this from the hiring manager, I used to discuss it with HR and then the budget for the department. Some of these things take time, so don't necessarily assume the worst or vent too much. Just ask for timeline updates if you're going through a negotiation scenario that takes a bit more time than you would hope for. So just to finish up here, right, this brings me on to my course that I have a course which is linked in description called the Career Code, and one of the key lessons there which is linked to this is owning your time, or the company will, right? You control your time by setting strong boundaries, prioritizing your non-negotiable life goals, whether that's sticking to specific work hours so they don't give you extra work to do in the evening when you want to spend time with your family or your other goals. And also another thing is reviewing your calendar weekly to ensure each hour serves your mission. So when you're dealing with negotiations, not just when it comes to salaries and job offers, but how many extra meetings you should be going to in a week if they're not really adding value and you're just expected to just sit there and silently listen to other people discuss things that are loosely related to what you do. You should be careful around that, right? And be comfortable declining certain meetings, or in certain cases, this things I've done, other people have done, is when we have maybe weekly meetings, maybe there's not much to discuss, we change it to bi-weekly meetings every 2 weeks or every month, or saying, oh, well, I can't attend that, I have to work on other work tasks. If you can give me a brief update after the meeting if you need something from me. That's another way of dealing with things. So you don't have as much of your money or your time wasted, and that's what matters when it comes to any corporate job. Now, if you're interested in career coaching, I have 2 solutions for you. I can help you get your promotions faster and progress your career faster through my Career Accelerator coaching program, or help you in your job search and land your dream career through a career booster coaching program. And lastly, like I say, there's a course also linked in description called the Career Code. Now, I give free advice through my mailbox money newsletter, which is like an email newsletter you'll get twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. So that's completely free. You can just sign up on this page, again, link in description, and you'll start receiving 2 emails a week with some helpful tips to help you get through that difficult work week. So I hope you find that helpful. Let me know how you've dealt with salary negotiations yourself. 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.